Good afternoon, everybody. Judy Maggio with KLRU's Decibel with my sidekick here.
Hello, Ben Philpott from KUT Radio. Sorry, I'm waiting for it to show up so that I can share it on my Facebook page.
I know, me too.
I love it.
Okay, so today on Capital Coffee Talk, every week I try to bring a new mug. Had to highlight this one because if you vote like Wonder Woman, you will have superhuman strength.
I don't know that she's a U.S. citizen. I'm not sure she could vote in our elections.
This was a gift from a dear friend. She got it at the
comic
National
book nerd.
Archives
It's very, very pretty.
in Washington, D.C., and I wanted to show it because it shows Wonder Woman through the years. Look at that. All the way back to 1940. Talk about a female role model.
You know, they don't have the Wonder Woman, I'm just going to be a geek here, they don't have the Wonder Woman where she lost her powers for a couple of years and wore a pantsuit. They actually did a TV show pilot back in the 70s for it, yeah.
Oh, I remember the 1970s. Had Linda Carter on it.
No, maybe this was late 60s then. But yeah,
See,
at one point
I remember the 1970s.
At one point,
TV
DC
shows.
made her lose her power for a little bit.
Oh, okay. That might have been part of that. I think that was part of the Linda Carter series.
No one.
Send in a comment if you know the answer to the Wonder Woman question. But I digress. We're going to be talking about.
That was way out of the.
1 week from today, big day.
Yeah, election day. Numbers are going pretty strong across the state. Actually, we had Dana DeBevois, Travis County Clerk, over at KUT this morning for a live kind of election
you guys did a great
show. Yeah,
I listened. It was wonderful.
Well, you know, a lot of people are focused on, you know, who's running, what are the hot races and all this. And we cover a little bit of that at KUT. But as we've talked about week over week with the Texas Decides series that we've done, we really just want to educate people on how they can go vote, not who they can vote for. I mean, we let them know who's on the ballot. We let them know what races are. And so it was great.
Nonpartisan educating.
Absolutely. And it was great. Dana was there, though, but Dana said that already in Travis County, with still 4 days left of early voting, and then the election day, the primary election day left, Travis County had already met its goal for voter turnout in the primary.
And it's my understanding that
still like another half to go, and they've already met it.
Right now, the Democrats are far exceeding the Republicans in the number of people who have cast their ballots early thus far.
Yeah, I have not looked in the last couple of days on what the Secretary of State's office. You know, they don't list total state turnout for early vote, but they do list like the top. I believe it's the 15 largest counties in the state, which is something like 80% of the population, or 70%, a large number.
Harris, Travis, yeah.
Yeah, all the way down to Brazos even, and some of the others. But the numbers were a little closer there. Democrats were still winning, but Democrats were not winning. Democrats were showing up in greater numbers in more than half of those counties. Only places like Fort Worth, Tarrant County, Collin County, and I'm going to forget the other one, so I won't try to remember.
That's because you've been up early talking live on radio. But it's to the point where I understand that there's some red flags going up, that even Governor Abbott sent out a message to supporters and said, look, don't take this primary lightly. We could be in trouble if the Democrats continue to show up in greater numbers.
I mean, it's a little... the math doesn't quite work.
No.
But because obviously the number of people that vote in a primary, even if Democrats really do come out in greater numbers, the number of Democrats that vote in a primary are not enough. If those exact same people come out in the fall, that's not enough to win a statewide election. But I think that there may also be a little bit of the idea, which is something that you've seen a lot from Governor Abbott and some other state leadership, of true Republicans. Of Republicans that are actually conservative, like Governor Abbott, and conservative, like Lieutenant Governor
Moss
Patrick.
Conservative?
Yes, the governor himself has put himself in between three incumbents, Republican incumbents that are seeking re-election, backing people that he considers are more sufficiently conservative in those races.
There's a race in Houston. Is it Sarah Davis?
Sarah Davis and Susan Dokapil. Susanna, I'm sorry, I apologize, I forgot the first
name. A lot
of
names.
But
up there.
There's also been a push from education groups to, if you assume that many educators maybe traditionally vote in Democratic primaries, telling them, look, crossover, vote in a Republican primary, vote for specific candidates against current incumbents to help promote a more pro-education agenda. So I think that could be a little bit of it. The governor is saying, don't let Democrats vote in our Republican primary because they're really turning out.
But
that
in the past,
measured.
Right,
yeah.
And in the past when, back in, we were talking earlier, in the 2008 election when Rush Limbaugh went on a national campaign and said, go vote, you Republicans, in the Democratic primaries across the country.
And mess everything up.
Yep. And it didn't really happen.
No, CNN, I believe, had an exit poll, which I think also was the last time the state of Texas had an exit poll in an election, because the state's red. You don't need to parse out the need to parse out the data when somebody wins by 20 points.
No, and they haven't elected a Democrat to statewide office since 1994.
Right.
So,
but in that primary, I think it was a very low number of people that said, yes, I'm traditionally a Republican, but I voted in the Democratic primary. I mean, something in the single digits, and it didn't appear to really.
But I think that this is one of those election years where nothing's predictable. I mean, nobody predicted 2016. I have a feeling no one's going to be able to predict exactly what's going to happen in the midterm elections.
And I actually was talking to a group about this yesterday, whether this election feels different from other ones. First of all, I don't know that we'll really know that. I mean, we see Democratic numbers up, but we may not really know that until after the primaries. But also, the last time we had a wave election here, which also was a wave election across the country, was 2010. That was kind of the Tea Party red wave that swept everywhere. A lot of people forget in the 2009 Texas legislative session, the Texas House was 76 Republicans and 74 Democrats.
Yeah, it was almost 50-50 at that point.
And after the 2010 election, it was more than 2/3. It was like 105 Republicans and 40.
And it's pretty much
Democrats.
Stayed close to that. I
think we've gotten into the 90s, 90 and 50, like 95, 55, or something like that. But but people didn't see that necessarily coming because it wasn't right after like a redistricting year or whatever. So, we'll just have to see what happens.
Texas politics. It's interesting no matter what happens.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to introduce our guests now. We have Belinda Matingou with the Texas Association of Business. And really, the business community is stepping up to the plate and telling everyone that March matters, that the March primary does have a big influence on who your voice is at the state, local, national level. Belinda, tell us about this new effort, this March Matters effort with the Texas Biz Votes campaign.
Excellent. Thank you. And we recognize that for businesses to flourish and grow in our state, we need to have legislators who understand the needs of the business community. And the way that you get representative government is by having people go out in representative numbers to vote. Understanding that on March 6th, the primary date in Texas, that's when the majority of the actual final contest will be determined. It's not in November, it's in March.
It's in a week.
Exactly. And so that's why we are speaking with a lot of businesses that are our members. We have over 4,000 business members in our organization and over 200 chambers of commerce across the state. And we are getting the message out to a lot of businesses to say it's important to educate and inform your employees about the importance of voting. Because one of the things that research shows is that when employers speak to their employees about voting, 65% of those employees said that they were more likely to vote because of having heard about it from their employer, because they know it must be something important. It's important for the business so that they'll continue to, have jobs, and it's important because any employer that is concerned about the interests of their employees will tell them about, their health care plans, their 401ks, and so they will focus on it and go out and vote as a result.
I'm not trying to pitch you against anyone in this question, but is kind of the what has happened, and I believe Speaker Joe Straus kind of talked about this, that over, Texas has always been considered a business-friendly state. But over the last few election cycles, you've seen the kind of louder voices within the party in power, the Republican Party, that have been more from the activist side of the party. And therefore, this is a kind of a movement of the business branch of the state, making sure that its voice is also heard.
That is
correct. I think
correct.
of the bathroom bill as an example where the Texas Association of Business came out against it, but the majority of the legislators, at least in one branch, was supportive of it in the House. So.
And because we recognize that that would have been devastating to the Texas economy, it would have hurt people, hurt jobs and paychecks in Texas, which is what we advocate on behalf of. We recognized that we needed to speak up, and I'm very proud that we had a great coalition, and many of those coalition members are acting right now to help us continue the work, which is, after having, defeated, provided the support from the business community that courageous legislators like Speaker Strauss and Chairman Byron Cook were able to, make sure that they were attuned to what, was really the sentiment of the broad Texas community, not just those few people whose views are out of step with the majority of Texans. We were able to get businesses like Silicon Labs and Enviromedia, who are working with us very closely on our TexBiz Votes voter engagement, voter education program. And I have to acknowledge that, for example, Silicon Labs is doing some really creative things that other businesses could emulate. They're not only educating their employees, but they're also helping them to do some fun things. They're doing some group activities and getting everyone to go out to the polls afterwards.
And when you have millennials to really influence them, sometimes you need to bring them in more engaging, fun ways. We helped with a panel on the Texas Civic Health Index, and Valerie Salinas Davis was there from Enviromedia. And they've really been involved in this, and I want to play a little clip because she talked about the importance of the March primary when it comes to terms of your local voice and how your voice can impact issues you care about, like transportation and healthcare.
Vote counts the most locally don't wait for a presidential election. If you want to change things, vote on local elections. And the March Matters material is saying, sick of the traffic, go vote March Matters. Worried about your health care, go vote March Matters.
That creative spark to make people feel like they're part of something special.
Yes, and I really have to give a shout out to Valerie and her Enviromedia team, because they've taken March Matters, which is an organic effort from some great PR talent, advertising talent here in Texas, to come together and create some visual aids that remind people about the importance of voting in March, and also demystify something about the voting process, letting people know things about what are the requirements in terms of, can you vote in any primary you choose if you've never declared yourself as aligned with one party or another. And so Valerie and her team have taken this, the March Matters materials, and made them much more millennial friendly.
Accessible.
Exactly. And so it's been wonderful to see this great organic grassroots effort where people are just saying, hey, we need to start getting the word out to people, and her team has done a great job of doing that. And once again, that's some of the information that we are sharing and getting out.
Well, we were talking before we went on the air actually a little bit about the things that you generally push from the Texas Association of Business, the way you would grade lawmakers who are in the Capitol on how they're voting on business issues. And you said that kind of overall there is what you would expect, the idea of low regulation, friendly business environment. But so for someone though who doesn't own a business, what are some things that maybe people don't know that you're also, what are the issues that touch more people than just those business owners?
Well, for our number one advocacy item is education, making sure that we are educating Texas citizens, Texas children, through the higher education levels, because that's what provides the skills and the innovative, creative skills that people have that have made Texas businesses grow, especially in the tech industry that I've come out of. And so we recognize the importance of education. We also recognize the importance of investment in our infrastructure so that we can get rid of the gridlock. Because the same thing that affects a business not being able to get their goods to market affects you being able to get to where you'd like to go around Texas. No one wants to sit in traffic.
Well, nobody's going to go out to dinner if they can't get there in their car, right? Or some way easy.
Or go to the grocery store.
Right, exactly. Right. Some alternative transportation forms, which we support as well. So really what we focus on is things that enable commerce to happen in Texas, and that's what every consumer in Texas is involved in.
And that falls within quality of life in general.
That is
correct.
And it's not a partisan thing. It's a business.
Yes, it is.
Situation where you're promoting issues that help businesses.
That's correct. And while we are, clearly a conservative business organization, we are definitely a bipartisan business organization. Right. And we make sure that in a nonpartisan manner, we're getting out information about the things that employers can take and use to educate their employees and encourage them to go out to vote. That's one of the questions that I hear for those employers who've just not been comfortable having this discussion with their employees before. How can I engage them in this conversation? And I point out that we have tools, an online tool that we send out. If people go to votes.txbiz.org.
Votes with an S.
Votes with an S.
Okay. We actually have a link to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that allows people to see all the candidates from every party, including those that are not in the primary yet, the Libertarian and Independent parties, exactly. Any candidate who registered with the Secretary of State during the primary period, and so people are aware of who the candidates are, and we sent out questionnaires to all of those candidates, and those who responded, you'll see their responses about what they plan to do about the issues that really affect our population, and that is, issues of education, infrastructure, health care, even criminal justice, because that's something else that affects the workforce in Texas.
And it's my understanding that by law, businesses are supposed to provide the opportunity for employees to go vote.
That is
correct. That's not like a whole day off, but they're supposed to be supportive of
voting.
In
exactly.
general.
And the law, as I understand it, is that they, if their employees work in a shift that does not allow them to get out to vote anywhere between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. when the polls are open, then they need to provide a 2-hour break. Now, most good employers will do that anyhow. They'll just encourage people and let them know that, hey, if you need to take a longer period of time for your lunch break or whatever, go and vote. And also, the wonderful thing about Texas is that we have a 2-week period. Right now, we're in the early voting period, and so people have 2 weeks, including some time over this past weekend. But the time is coming short because this Friday is the end of early voting, and that's why I'm reminding people it's important we all get out to do early voting, because if you wait until March 6th, the actual election day, something's going to come up. Your child might be sick.
I voted today for that very reason. I was worried that on March 6th I might have too busy of a day. It's just like, get it done. So Valerie, could you look into the camera and give us Valerie is with Enviro Media. We just heard her soundbite. Belinda, could you look into the camera and give us your best why people need to vote in the March primary? No pressure.
No problem. Because if you truly want a representative government, then you have a civic responsibility to go out and vote. That's the way that we get representatives who truly represent our voice. And I'm very proud of the fact that in Texas, I know many of these divisive issues are not representative of the entire state, because I talk to people around the entire state. The people who really care about our state and want our state to continue to be a welcoming place for business and for people from around the world are the people who can go out and vote for great representative legislators.
Thank you. Belinda Matingou with the Texas Association of Business. I'm glad to see businesses getting involved in this effort, because March really does matter. And as you said, representation at the local, state, and national level comes from the votes that are going to be made a week from today.
I think we said this in the last episode. There was some study that showed 800,000 people selected Governor Greg Abbott to be governor.
Out of a state of
28 million. That's what he needed to win the Republican primary, and then that was that.
That's why every vote counts.
Yep.
It does. Thank you so much, Belinda, for being here today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So Ben, I'm wondering, you guys have been holding this Texas Decides, inviting people to send in questions over the last, month or so?
Yeah.
What have been some of the what are the most common questions that you get?
Can I vote in both primaries?
Right, and the answer is
no. You can over a 2-year period. You can vote in the Republican primary in 2018 and in the Democratic primary in 2020. And the reason you can do that is the second biggest question we get, which is,
Do I need to register?
Do I need to register with a party? No, we don't have party registration. They're open primaries. Somebody actually sent in a thing and said, what percentage of Texans are registered Democrats and registered Republicans and registered independents? Well, first of all, why would independents register? But secondly, no, we don't have registration. Essentially, based on different polling, the state is a third, a third, and a third. Third independent, third Republican, third Democrat, with most of the independents voting Republican. But those are the two biggest ones. And again, that, as we've talked about before, that just really kind of shows that voter education on what the issues are and what the candidates are very important. But I think I've discovered personally that maybe even more important is simply letting people know how they can vote, because there are so many people who just don't know.
It's confusing, yeah. And really remember that through Friday there are dozens of places you can do early voting in Travis County.
Yeah, and early voting in every single county in the state. You can vote anywhere there's a polling place. Now, some of these counties that have 500 people that live in them, there's probably only one polling place.
Is it really a county with 500?
Well, in terms of people that turn out to vote, yes. Okay. But if you have any question, if you're not watching us here in Travis County, all you have to do is go to your home county's elections webpage. Right. It's pretty easy to Google, county name, elections, and it'll pop up, and that will have the information on where their polling places are. You can vote anywhere you see a polling place within that county up until the primary election day in 50 counties across the state, including Travis and Williamson, I know. You can vote, again, anywhere you see a polling place on election day. Other counties know you have to go to the one that is assigned to what part of the county you live in. But again, those websites are the best way to figure that out.
It'll also tell you what you need to vote, because there's been confusion about what source of identification you need to bring. That's all lined out on those voting websites in the individual county. So next week is the big day.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Why don't you come over to KUT?
I might do that. You don't like our little studio?
No, I like it, but at nighttime there's
That's
nothing,
right. Well, that's our little tease, as we call in the TV business. Ben and I are going to be doing Facebook Live results on primary night. Yep. We're going to have a little commentary and find out who's winning, who's losing, and
we're going to wander around. We're going to wander around the KUT newsroom, maybe grab a couple of the reporters that are there focusing on specific races. And then we'll have some pizza too, probably.
And coffee. We got to have coffee.
At that time of night?
Yes.
Maybe we'll have some Diet Coke.
So join us on Facebook once again next week at 12:30, and then also on Tuesday night as we bring you results of the primary. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We'll see you right here next week on Capital Coffee Talk. Have a great day.